I am president of Hollywood Creative. Jewel says, join my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss Howard Hawks, The Big Sleep, guys. Great, great movie starring Humphrey Bogart, his wife Lauren Bacall. Now, they did do a film called The Have and the Have Not, as me and Butch were discussing a little bit prior to coming on here and recording. And Lauren Bacall at that time was 19. I believe Humphrey Bogart was still technically married at the time he was doing that movie.
Was.
But he would go on to marry Lauren Bacall, and they did many movies together. Not just The Big Sleep, but they did Key Largo. We said it, To Have and Have Not, The Big Sleep. They also did I think they did a couple more. What's that?
And Dark Victory.
Yeah, Dark Victory. Just really, they just had such great chemistry. But this is the one. I would say out of all their movies, and I love Key Largo.
I love all of them, but yeah, this
right.
is the best movie.
This is the best one. And I think Bogey was, to me, one of the best, if not the best, on-screen detectives ever. I mean, the way he played the characters was so iconic. Even in Maltese Falcon, like I know that's not the same movie, but with this, like, the doorbell rings, they answer it, in walks Bogart, and anytime Bogart walks in playing the detective, shit's gonna go down, which is great.
He does play a good detective, but there's a certain something that every actor that plays a tough guy has, and some people can and some people can't. For me, Tom Cruise cannot play a tough guy. He should stop. He looks like a short, pissed off guy that I just want to go sit down. But Bogey, who I'm pretty sure is actually shorter than Tom Cruise, man, I would not mess with that man. He'd fight dirty. I mean, he'd bite your ear. He'd, kick you in the groin. To me, he is a tough guy without acting like a tough guy.
Right. There's moments in this movie where, and I'm not trying to jump ahead, but it's a great scene when he follows Lauren Bacall's character to this joint where everyone's gambling and having a good time. And he's met this sort of, I don't want to call him a mob boss, but he's sort of like a mob figure almost. Yeah. He's a bit like a mob boss. And you're sort of wondering, has this guy had Sean Regan rubbed off? And you're sort of wondering if Bogey's character, Philip Marlowe, is wondering the same thing. And he sees Lauren Bacall's character there, and she wins all this money. Well, when she comes out with the money, this guy tries to steal it from Robert, and it's one of the guy's men. And Bogart comes up to him, and he goes, "He got a gun." He goes, I don't like your boss, and I don't like people who play. Tell your boss I don't like people who play games. And he slugs him.
And he's like rubbing his thumb along his coat, and then sucker punches him.
Just bam! And it's such a cool scene. It's like he's not screaming at him, but he's saying it in such a tone where Bogart's character means it. Like even before that punch, like the punch is a backup to the sort of threat he's given him. And it's such a good scene. And again, you don't get that from a Tom Cruise, to me. Bogart could do, I'll give a great example. In the Maltese Falcon, when Bogart does raise his voice, he says to Sidney Greenstreet's character, and this time it's for keeps, and he slams the door. But as soon as he does, he smiles and he's walking away. It's like, son of a bitch, he's playing. Like, that's acting to me. That's somebody who's putting on this great performance, who can go into one thing 1 minute, and then the very in the same frame, boom, he's going into a whole nother mood. And it's like, holy shit, that's talent. And Bogart had that. The Big Sleep really demonstrates that, as well as I love how when he meets Lauren Bacall's the two girls' father, and he's sitting in this wheelchair. He can't drink nor smoke, but he likes people who can do it for him, and as long as he can watch them do it. And the room's real hot, and you see Bogart sweating, and he goes, he's talking about his daughters, and he goes, I hear they're both pretty and pretty wild. And they have this conversation where he had to pay this girl, this one person, money, and Sean Regan paid it last time, and Sean Regan left. And he's like, Bogart goes, and Bogart's character goes, and the old guy's like, what does that mean? He goes, it means I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just saying, yeah. You know, I really don't think Bogey gets his due as an actor. I mean, he was really good at playing tough guys, gangsters, detectives. But then you watch something like The Cane Mutiny, where he's such a pompous ass that you can't wait for him to get his comeuppance. But then you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's Phil Marlowe, that's The Big Sleep, that's the Maltese Falcon, and he had much more range than I think he ever was really given credit for.
That movie, that's another movie too that's really good psychological. Like it's not just a courtroom case. It really weighs what happened and what really did happen. And the lawyer, I forget the actor who played the lawyer, but he does a really good job really figuring out what really did happen.
I want to say it's Jose Ferrer, but don't quote me on that.
Right, it could be. I love what he does to the guy who was I just watched him with Barbara Stanwyck here the other day.
Fred McMurray?
Yeah, Fred McMurray, thank you. But I love how he throws water on him in that movie. And he goes, if anybody has a problem with what I just did, I'll see you outside.
Yep.
But you know why he did it, though.
And they do too.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, they do too. But it's sort of like, okay, this guy has been chickening out this whole time, and he sort of instigated all this in every way. And so, sorry, I know we're getting off topic, but it's okay. So he does this, and he just
9 minutes, and we're off topic.
It doesn't take long with us, but he does a really good job. Frank McMurray's like, yeah, sells it with his face. Yeah, I know I did wrong, and I'm an ass.
Yeah.
It's, again, great movie, and Bogart's character does a great job sort of painting himself as the villain in a sense. And that's where he's not, but he's sort of painting himself as this crazy captain. You're sort of wondering, is this guy Ahab? And he's sort of sounding like it, and does a really great job.
And then what the lawyer says at the end, during the early part of the war, when he tells this one guy, when you were still in college or you were going through officer school, Puig was out, keeping the world safe. And there's not really a clear-cut villain, and there's not really a clear-cut hero in that film, in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to do good things, but they don't all work out.
That's a story that has every character is sort of a MacGuffin. They're not really good or bad at all. They're not villainous. And even McMurray's character is sort of, he wants to do the right thing, but it's like, well, wait, we could get in trouble for this. So he's weighing sort of the consequences after he initially says about it. And so it's like, okay. And again, it's just an interesting and well-told story. I mean, the Cane Mutiny, I've seen that a couple times. Really, really great. But back to
the Big Sleep.
Man, the villain in this movie, the gangster, I don't know who's worse, him or his henchman. They're both pretty bad.
His henchman.
Yeah.
Bogey. There's one point where Bogey says to Lauren Bacall's character, you know, he'll knock my teeth out and then kick me in the stomach for mumbling. He's very much the enforcer. He's the Darth Vader, and it's like, oh God, what are I going to do about this? I mean, yes, Eddie Mars, the mobster character that you're talking about, he's a bad guy. I mean, but he's the emperor behind. I hate referring to Star Wars all the time, but almost everybody knows it and understands. If I say Darth Vader and the Emperor, here's what they call the dragon. Here's the guy you let loose to go solve your problem, and then you've got the puppet master behind it pulling the strings, and that way you have the dragon go do that stuff.
Wait, Pamela was Emperor Palpatine. Jason was Darth Vader. So.
What he thinks is Pamela. Go there.
I agree with you. There's a scene too where he poisons this guy, and Bogart's character is in literally just a wall, but there's like a thin wall between him, and he's listening to this. And this guy is he's pure evil, really. I mean, he's just. It's not to me. This guy, he's not about the money. He's about the enjoyment of killing, and you're sort of wondering, like, man, would he turn on his own boss? And it's like, probably, like, if he's, it's basically like a lot of villains you would see out of The Shadow, where the villains are so ruthless, they'll turn on this guy just to feel good about him, just make themselves feel good. But you're right too. The mob boss is a legit boss too in this too. He is a villain, but he's not as heavy as his henchman in a sense. I think they complement each other very well in this movie. What's your favorite scene in this movie? I got mine.
Oh Lord, Joel, my favorite scene. How about the whole damn movie? I mean, seriously, I love this film. If you're going, okay, I thought about it for a second, and I know what it is, and you're going to laugh. It's kind of a couple of scenes, but it's when Humphrey Bogart's character Philip Marlowe, for those in the know, goes into this first bookstore owned by a man named Arthur Gwayne Geiger, who is blackmailing General Sturwood from the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And he pops his hat up and he puts some glass up. Yes, I need a Ben-Hur 1811 or whatever it was. And he's trying to trip them up and find out if they're actually, it's a bookstore allegedly, but they don't, he's like giving her fake first editions and third edition rare books. And she has no idea. And she just, dismisses him. I mean, I could go across the street. And he does, and gosh, I forget the actress's name that works there. She went on to she was on to be kind of famous, and they have a great witty repartee, though and it starts to rain, and this is where my favorite scene really comes in. As stupid as it is, my favorite part of the film is while it's raining, and not that there's much going on. Right. Bogey's over here talking to that actress at the second bookstore. Geiger comes out. They go to his house. Bogey waits outside. Somebody else shows up, and then the film really starts. But all that scene when it's raining, and I agree, can't tell you why I like it so much, but those scenes right there in the rain, I guess it's almost like I'm one of those people. I take a shower early in the morning, so to me, a shower starts the day. So I guess it's kind of like a shower starts the film.
I think I know why you like it, because with detective movies, especially with the older movies that we love and know, this is what they were talking about with like a Shadow movie, that there's danger, even just waiting, there's danger. And even though he's with this girl, there's sort of an element of danger. It's just across the street. Now, they don't know he's really a private detective, but you don't know who might be watching him. Again, from the Greenwood house. Again, it's really, there's a scene too in this movie where, in that same the one you're talking about, when he's talking to that girl, he asked her too about those editions, and she goes over to a book and she's like, those aren't real editions. He goes, the girl in Geiger's bookstore didn't know that.
And they both give a little knowing. She gives him a little knowing glance, like, and then comes I think my wife's favorite line in the whole scene where he kind of leans back to the way. I'm a private dick on a case, and we both start laughing every time that line comes out. Yeah, we all know that he's meaning he's a private detective, and that was a term for them. But we both just look at each other and we start laughing for a minute because it's like, I swear I heard that in a porno film one time. I'm a private dick on a case. I believe the woman said, yes, you are.
You could tell they watched The Big Sleep. They just quoted that line. It's a great it's a great scene though. One of my favorite scene. It's sort of set up by a scene at the Geiger house where uh, Humphrey Bogart's character Philip Marlowe is going back and investigating, and this is sort of when you're introduced to the big mob boss, and he's got these goons outside, and they come in and they about frisking him. So when he goes to the club later on, he was like this. He
Hey,
comes when they come out the door, he's like, and they're like, "Oh, stop it!" And he starts laughing.
and the weird guy. He said that. That's what the man said. He said that. I, there are so many interesting characters in this film. There are so many interesting actors. There's so many interesting things. I don't think there's a bad thing in this film. I've said it before in our video series, and I'm going to say it again right now. This is one of my favorite films of all time. Half the time, I'm not sure what's going on, and I don't care. It's just a great film. There's great dialogue. We've talked about this before. The Howard Hawks films have this witty repartee going back and forth, and there's some great lines. We need to probably throw a line out to Lee Brackett, who was one of the screenwriters, and my understanding punched up the dialogue. And like he's talking about the General Storewood that's talking about at the beginning about the orchids and their sin is like the corruption of men's flesh. I mean, there's some great lines in this film, some great metaphors and similes, and just boom, which to me that's Bogey and Bacall, the lines back and forth.
I like how Miss Greenwood would like to see you. He goes up there, he's sweating, she's talking to him, and the one thing about Bogart characters, and especially his Philip Marlowe character, he didn't take nothing from nobody, even a woman. And I think that's something you see a little too much of today, where the men just seem to like they take it from the women. And it's like, no, you need to sort of not bellow, not yell, but say it in a tone that, hey, no, you're not, no. And that's what Bogart did. Yeah, this is your father's house, and I respect that, and I respect you in a sense, but you're not going to disrespect me. And
He goes right into it with that. And he keeps asking her for a drink and asking her a drink. She goes, "They're over there."
yep,
And he doesn't get one. She's like, "Thought you wanted a drink." He's like, "Nah." And it's just he does that through the whole film. And actually, I first saw this film in college, so circa 91, 92. I mean, I'd seen bits and pieces, but it was actually shown in one of my composition or literature classes, and fell in love with it. Oh my God, I fell in love with it. And that was something I started doing in my personality. Was where at my previous job, everybody knew I didn't like for my desk to be touched, and that's not the truth. I really didn't care, but there were people that liked to go mess with it, and they thought they were getting something over me. So I'd come in and the pen I left instead of being this way would be this way or whatever, and they thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, if y'all had only had some clue.
I've got some friends who are professional pranksters. They would top that easily. Another thing too is again, I think this movie really stresses too how great of a detective movie is, because there's moments where Bogart's character Philip Marlowe is just waiting in a car. He's waiting outside the Geiger house, and he sees lights and he ducks down. It, again, it brings you that element of danger that was in these old detective movies. It makes you appreciate it all the much more. And when he hears the gunshots, he sees these guys coming at, like, cars pulling away. He goes in and there's the woman's sister, and she's drugged up. She's like this, and he's like, he sees Geiger's dead body on the floor. He's like,
Uh-oh.
yeah. He shakes his head. It's like, and he searches I think he searches the camera too, and there's no film, and it's like, oh shit. Like, it ain't good. It's really bad now. And that's what he tells Lauren Bacall's character. He goes, if people call your sister's been here all night, that bad?
That bad.
That bad. it's it's like, it's almost, you want Bogart to say, girl, you got no idea. But in a sense, he's telling her that too. Like, yeah, it's that bad. And I think it's like, when Bogart's character, when he plays a detective, he never tries to be shocked. He just tries to read the situation. And I think that's something he's so great at as an actor, because when he walks in and he hears Lauren Bacall's character singing, actually, which she was really talented at that too. That's something she doesn't get enough credit for too as an actor. She could actually sing. And he looks at her, she looks at him, he nods, and she's like, she's, it's like he's not shocked. He's just, okay, you're here. And that's when he goes to meet the boss, and I love it. He's not afraid to be direct. He's like, what do you know about Sean Regan? And he's like, it's like,
Every time
it's
he says that name, Eddie Mars.
like, yep. It's like, it's not a direct punch. It's sort of like a quick jab, like, boom. Like, I'm gonna get to the truth here. You just need to tell me what it is.
You jumped over one of my favorite little, I don't know if I call it a scene, but
Sorry.
after he sees Bacall and she does that and he does that, and the cigarette girl comes up and Lauren Bacall's still singing, and she like turns like, and she looks at the cigarette girl's legs because she has a real short skirt and I don't know if they're fishnets but stockings, and then Bogart notices she's doing, and he looks back at Bacall and goes, and an important thing for anybody that for some unfathomable reason hasn't seen this, the Sean Regan character has allegedly run off with the mob mobster's wife.
Yep.
Mobster boss's wife, and that's why Bogart says that, and he says it a couple times, and every time, like you say, it's a jab. It's not a punch, there's not some Schwarzenegger
Yep.
15-minute fight or anything. There's a lot of verbal jabs, and it's not that he's even trying to be mean or cruel. He's just trying to find out, but he's smart enough to know he's not going to tell you, because half of the movie, maybe all of it, Lauren Bacall's character is trying to figure out what her father hired Philip Marlowe for, and he won't tell her
Yep.
because he doesn't know she's behind it. So to me, it's a sign of a good detective, and it's a sign of a well-written script. I mean, how many times have you seen a movie where somebody does something dumb and they sort of explain it, but you're just like, that reasoning's a little weak. This movie does that. And it, even when it is a little kind of confusing and maybe not the smartest thing to do, it moves so fast you don't even notice it. You don't have time to care about it. It's like, okay, we're here now. Okay, what's going on now? Who's doing what?
I love what Bogart does. It to him, he's doing. I'm pretty sure he says about it too. He goes, "Your father, that he tried to do everything right by her dad in every way. Like, to him, when Philip Marlowe took on a case, he took on that case. His employer, the person who paid him, he made sure, hey, that's my boss, not you, and you." And it was. again, he doesn't. You're right. He doesn't just tell her, but he's also, again, he's investigating. His daughters, not just the mob boss, but what they're into, and he protects the youngest, and he's also sort of trying to protect the oldest as well. He does what Sean Regan was doing in a sense.
Yeah.
Sean Regan, he the mob boss was married to a very, very beautiful woman, and well, Sean Regan, he couldn't keep his pants on.
As the English say, he had a trousers problem.
Yes, he did. And well, hey, he slept with the mob boss's wife. What do you think that's going to get you popped? But as soon as they said mob boss's wife, I was like, yeah, he's buried in the desert someplace or the ocean somewhere. But I I love how Bogart's character builds the fear of the henchman, describes what he did to both Lauren Bacall's character and that woman. Like, hey, that guy he's telling him, hey, he's a killer. He's brutal. He's not this nice person. The shootouts in this movie is very well done. I love how he gets to Geiger's place before them, and
And sets it up, acting like, oh, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And
yeah,
already there.
Yeah, that's sort of something he says. He goes, this time I got there first. I got here first. And again, to get rid of the mob boss, to get rid of everything in this movie is just beautiful to watch. Even the kills they're not really, to me, they're not gritty. They're sort of beautiful to watch. It's like the way Howard Hawks is shooting this, the way it's written, the way it's done, it's an art form.
Yes.
It's, again, this movie's a 10, guys. Straight 10 from start to finish. And it's, again,
in the best meaning of the word. This is cinema. This is film. This is what, if you're a songwriter, that you want to write something like this. If you're a singer, you want to sing something like this. You're a director, you're an actor, you want to be in this, or you want to direct it. It's one of the few films. It's in my top 10 all time, and it's probably over. I do 1 to 5 instead of 1 to 10. It's over a 5, or if in your scale, it's over a 10. And there's not many movies that I put that high, and it's so much fun. And you're talking about the shootouts. I suppose, like my granddaughter, she's in her teens. She probably wouldn't think this is much of a shootout.
No, she wouldn't.
But this is probably much more realistic than, I always joke about the John Wayne 6-shooter that shoots 27 bullets, or the Uzis spraying, the Uzi 9mm spraying everything. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Arnold. Arnold wouldn't work in this film. So, hey, before I forget, I want to ask you something. Have you ever seen the remake with Robert Mitchum and Jimmy Stewart?
Of this movie, or
They made it in the 70s.
no, but I have seen Robert Mitchum in Out of the Past.
I've seen like the first part of it. Jimmy Stewart plays General Sternwood. Of course, Robert Mitchum plays Marlowe. What's her name? Alexis? Not Alexis. Dynasty, the brunette. Joan Collins.
Okay.
She plays the woman that works in the bookstore. Agnes, I think her name is.
Yeah.
And there's some, I've never. It doesn't have the direction that this has. Robert Mitchum, he's a fine actor. We've discussed him before. It doesn't have the oomph. And you were talking about Fred McMurray and Barbara Stanwyck, so I presume you're talking about Double Indemnity. There's a remake of that, and in the 2-disc DVD I have, they included it. It's got Richard Crenna from the Rambo series, and I believe it's Samantha Eggar in the other row. Again, there's something missing. You got good actors, and you got a good script, but
You want to see Richard Crenna in a really, really good dark movie? Wait until Dark. It is really the fact that they get Audrey Hepburn to play a blind woman in this movie it's you want to scream run at
Yep.
her, and you
Yep.
do in a sense. Even with Crenna's character, he's sort of creepy. It, it's like, will he kill this woman? You're sort of wondering, even though the one guy, you could tell he's more of the killer of the three, but the other two aren't afraid to get their hands dirty in a
Yeah.
sense. And I own the Blu-ray. It's a great movie to watch, but I know Karina's more known for the Rambo movies now, which is good, great, but he had a hell of a career too. He was in some really good movies.
I was going to mention that about Ernest Borgnine when we were talking. I mean, not Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson when we were talking about Once Upon a Time in the West. Charles Bronson may have never been in the contention for an Oscar, but he made some really, really good roles. Once Upon a Time in the West, Magnificent Seven,
Harder They Fall,
part of the
yeah,
Mechanic.
Mechanic, yep.
But unfortunately, he's now known more for the Death Wish films. And while the first one isn't bad, it's an interesting film. It's kind of like Dirty Harry. If you take Dirty Harry and the first Death Wish film and you watch them together, I think it's a great double feature.
I,
But all the sequels, not that some of them are okay. Dirty Harry's are okay, but I don't know. It's kind of why are you going back here?
I'll give you a fun fact about Death Wish. The novel, the novel Death Wish came out before The Punisher, and in a lot of ways, Paul Kersey inspired The Punisher.
Also, The Executioner, Mac Bolan, the series of novels. That's the I have actually read a few of those, and I always thought that that's where the Punisher, because it's basically the same story. This former badass military guy's family gets killed, and he's like, "Screw everybody! I'm declaring war on crime." And except that Mac Bolan's not quite as psychotic as the Punisher is.
Yeah, the Punisher, completely. There's a sequence where the Punisher in the Spider-Man animated series, the Punisher comes to New York. So does Blade, by the way. But I really like the fact that you're right. Bronson did have a great career. Also, Death Hunt was really good. Um, Chino, the White Buffalo, where he had a hell of a career. And you're right. A lot of people do remember him for I'll give you my best Death Wish movie. Now, many people are going to go two. Two is a bit cringy though. I'll go Death Wish 4. I know it's the fourth installment in the franchise. And you usually with the fourth installment, it's like but the fourth installment is pretty good.
Is that the one, the takedown or something like that?
Right. There's this guy who poses as a newspaperman who wants Kersey to take down the drug people who killed his girlfriend's daughter, and he does it, and he turns out the newspaperman's really a drug kingpin himself.
Uh,
It's really intriguing and really good, and it exposes Kersey a bit. You know, hey, I love flaws in characters because hey, it's a human element,
yeah,
but there's really good lines by Kersey in this movie. He's like, he shows a picture of the girl to this guy. I don't know her. He's like, I do, and he shoots the guy. But, so yeah, for me, it's Death Wish for the Crackdown, as they call it.
that's what it was.
I had to remember it for a second myself. I'm thinking, it had to do with drugs. Yeah, Crackdown.
Okay, I'm cracking down on you. We gotta get back to the big sleep.
I'm sorry, my apologies, sir. But yeah, Bogart really. Again, my favorite movie with him is The Maltese Falcon, but this is really, really great too. It's a movie you can watch and just enjoy it over and over again. And he, from start to finish, even if really, and I'm going to go to hell for saying this, they did not need Lauren Bacall in this movie for him to shine. I know they put her in this movie, and it had great. Again, they always had great chemistry in any movie they were in. Take nothing away from them, either of them. But to me, they did not. They could have put another actress in that role, and I do think, maybe it would have worked the same. Now, does Lauren Bacall deserve credit? Yeah, she does. She's a hell of an actress, I think. In this, there's things she does. When I first watched this, I wasn't expecting from her. Like I was shocked she was at that place singing. But I'm also watching Bogart's Philip Marlowe, like not be again. He's just observing. This is the great thing about him being this private investigator. He has to observe everyone around him, including his employer's daughters.
Yeah.
But I think, though, too, the best hint of it, like he says, that they're pretty and they're pretty wild. So he's sort of expecting a lot of trouble with this case from both of them. And then when the murder happens, it's like, oh yeah, oh shit. But again, great film from start to finish. I will say that I love how, who is it? When right before that guy gets poisoned, he's just coming in, and when the other guy comes in, they're talking. It's like I'm like, he's not gonna let him live, is he? Like, no. And it's like, oh no, he didn't let him live. No. But go ahead, my friend.
Hey, before I even say that, I want to ask you something. I know you made a quick video and was talking about movies being released on streaming services, and you have the Blu-ray of this, I believe. Does it have any special features on it?
Let me go turn on my kitchen light because I can't see with my. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, because this ties into something that I want to bring up.
Okay, let's see. Special features. Oh, special features. 1945 alternate version. The Big Sleep Comparisons, 1945, 1946. Okay. Introduction by Robert Gitt, and theatrical trailer.
If you've never watched that, you should watch that special feature. The differences, the changes they made, because they talk about, they had To Have Not, which was the first Bogey and Bacall film, and then Lauren Bacall made a film with Charles Boyer. I forget the title of it. It bombed, and she bombed. She was just critically bombed, and her agent wrote to, I believe, Jack Warner. I may be wrong, but he's like, if here's some suggestions to make. Let her be more like she was in To Have and To Have Not. Insolent, if you will. And I'll step back from this, but she didn't take no crap, and he doesn't take no crap, and that's one of the reasons they're a great couple. Yeah. And they have that great thing. So, but if you watch the 1945 version, which is the version, because this movie was finished, and then they put it on the shelf for like a year because it was 1945, World War II was winding down, so the studio was hurrying. I believe it's Warner Brothers was hurrying to get all their war films out before the war was over, which that makes sense. So this one was put to the side, and like I said, the talent, the agent wrote the head of the studio and was like, hey, let me make some suggestions. And if you watch the 45 version, because you were saying, you think some other actors could have done, and I'm sure they could have. But if you watch the differences in the film in respect to Bacall's character, darn it, I was going to, not Carmen Sternwood. I was trying to think of the character's name. But the differences in the character in the two versions, the one that we see, the 46, is superior, and she puts a much better performance in because it's, it is more like To Have and To Have Not, and she gives just as good as she gets. Yeah. In that way, she's a much more interesting character. So my thought would be if some other actress played this role, they wouldn't have done the reshoots.
Yeah.
And that character would not have been quite as interesting. Would this film still be good? Probably.
Is that where they added the dinner scene with them? I've seen that version. Yeah, it's really good. She is. Yeah, and two, you want to see her really sort of, other than to have and to have not. Really, Key Largo. She's really a great character in that. She is, because there's times when she doesn't say something, but the way she looks, she's saying a lot. And there are going to be people who don't notice that, but go and watch it. It's really, it's Oscar worthy what she's doing with her face, because she's not just looking at, Humphrey Bogart's character. She's sort of looking into his soul.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with Edward G. Robinson's character. She's sort of looking into his soul. It's really, again, the cast is amazing. So is this one, but she really deserves a lot of credit, to me, more for that movie. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve credit for this one. She does. But for me, Key Largo is more her movie in a way.
Yeah, yeah. She has a little bit more to do. I mean, I think she was originally in the film like Big Sleep for like 20 minutes. I think somebody says so. Yeah. They added, I don't know, let's say 10 more minutes, but that's an important 10 minutes that they added. And you're talking about your favorite bogey film is The Maltese Falcon. Mine's Casablanca. It'll always be Casablanca, which is it's probably the first bogey film I saw. And there's just, I don't want to get sidetracked again, but as that film progresses and what he does at the end with Ingrid Bergman's character and giving up this woman he loves and future happiness to help win the war, it's just it's so freaking noble and it's so awesome, and that's, to me, that's probably his best film, or at least my favorite. I'll say this may be his best film, but probably Casablanca is my favorite of just picking it for him.
There's movies that should not be remade, and Casablanca is one of them.
Yep.
I own that on Blu-ray as well. Great movie. I mean, great cast. Sidney Greenstreet's in that one too. I like how Enrich he play it. He doesn't say play it against him. He says play it.
You played it for her, so you can play it for me.
Yeah. It's one of the best misconceptions about the film. People think he says play it against it. No, he doesn't. But great movie. And Butch, buddy, you got to get the Blu-ray.
I may have. Is it did they remaster the picture? Because there's the DVD I have. I mean, it's fine. It looks good, but there's some really bad, like the little hair that sticks up at the bottom of the frame. There's a scene. It's almost like it's waving in Bogey's pants leg.
Well, this is an archive. My wife got me the archive collection. It doesn't say they did anything, but it looks beautiful from what I've watched. I mean, I've watched this like 5 times on this. It looks beautiful. There's
5 times?
5. Listen, I have a ton of movies.
Slacker.
Yes, I know. I'm a slacker host because I get off. God damn it. I make Butch go off topic. There's something wrong with me going off topic, man. I don't know what it is.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you some slack and let you feel better. Did you know Casablanca was remade?
Yes, I know what movie. It was remade with Pam Anderson. Yeah, I know the movie.
Which I remember. Let's see. I guess it was late '90s when that was made, and she was starting to become famous. And it's like, okay, at least we'll have some decent scenery. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh my God, you bastards have taken Casablanca and put Pamela Anderson. It's like I kept expecting my eyes to shoot out. It's just
her character's sort of like the Rick character, but a female version. And again, Pam Anderson will never be known for her acting. But I'll tell you, if they would have did this right, And I know people are saying, oh, it's the 90s. She's more of a horror gal. But Sigourney Weaver could have pulled that off.
Maybe.
Could have pulled off like a Rick character. And really another actress, I'm going to kick myself because I always forget her name. But she was in The Long Kiss Goodnight with Sam Jackson. Little bit.
Gina Davis?
Yes, Gina Davis could have pulled that off as well. I think if you actually put an actress in that role and make it a better script, you have a better remake. But
You have to have an actress or actor that has some world weariness to them. You
yeah,
can have some 25-year-old bleach blonde. I mean, she can be an attractive woman. That's it's not that she's a woman, and it's not that she's attractive and she has two outstanding talents, as Joe Bob Briggs would say. It's just she doesn't have the chops.
no.
You have to have somebody that's like, what do you want? You know, and do that much better than I just did it. And
I,
you believe this person is, yeah, this person doesn't want to do this. You know, there's something to them.
I
Now,
will I
oh,
will give Barbed Wire this. Its its situation does sort of make you feel sorry for the characters who are trying to get out of it.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Like that's the one thing it does have that Casablanca did, but it's missing certain things. That's all I'll say.
Now, you know, I tell you what, I'll defend Pamela Anderson since that's, in case anybody sees it and gets upset. She does have, I'm going to use a term that I don't like that's used for an actor that I don't feel it does. She does have a knack for comedy. I don't know if you ever caught her series VIP. It's one of them syndicated shows, and I mean, kind of silly like Xena and Hercules. It did take itself real serious. She was great in it. I mean, because she did, the character didn't really take herself seriously. I think she was a former model that lost her money and she'd bought this detective agency and then took it over because she'd lost her money. And she was great. And it's like, okay, this is where we need to start, not remaking Casablanca, one of the greatest films of all time. Okay, now back to Big Sleep.
Yeah, I think with this, again, this is another movie that just shouldn't be touched. And really, its its villains are interesting. And again, when you take a character like Philip Marlowe and you bring Bogart to the role, it just adds a whole nother layer because he himself just brings a whole nother style to every character he's ever played. Even when he's played a gangster, I've talked about the Petrified Forest a bit, but really just to me, one of the most underrated actors of all time is Humphrey Bogart, and I think that's the best thing I can say. This film, go buy it, goddamn.
Yes, what you were just saying. I was thinking, it's probably it'll eventually be remade again, and we can't stop it. So, one thing I would suggest is update it. You don't have to make it 2022 or whenever you make it, but update it. But somebody that I think could play a really good Philip Marlowe is Clive Owen. He has that world weariness about him. I mean, like I could honestly even see him playing Rick from Casablanca. I stick my neck out for no one, and he would do it differently. You can't, these films like Big Sleep, Maltese Falcon that are based on books. They're going to be remade, and okay, but if you remake it, do your thing with it. Don't try to make the Howard Hawks, Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall film. It's like, okay, let's take this film, what worked, what didn't, and let's write do our own thing.
I think that's something, we touched upon that Rob Zombie doesn't get enough credit. He wasn't trying to do John Carpenter's Halloween. He was trying to do his own version. I will say where people sort of, I feel, get it confused is, well, it looks like John Carpenter's Halloween through the lens. Yeah, because Rob Zombie out, what's his name? Out Dean Cundy. Great cinematography in that film. I
Yeah,
mean, just the way he shot it. I don't know if he talked to Cundy. I'm not sure, but the way he shot it, I could see Dean Cundy doing the photography. But I know it was Rob. He doesn't get enough credit for the way he shot that movie and really told his story. And again, it's I know people would say about the swearing, and I understand why. But you got to understand, this is a different tone film than what we
yeah.
saw in 1978. Again, a lot of people think say this is set in the 70s. I'm not so sold it is, because there's modern day vehicles in a sense. I think in the film, but if I'm wrong, please somebody correct me when we're done here.
I think it is supposed to be set at least in the 70s or early 80s, because when Michael gets free and he goes to this truck stop, sorry, and he messes with Ken Foray, Big Joe Grizzly, when he's using the restroom, they play Tom Sawyer by Rush, which is off of the album Moving Pictures, which came out in 1980. So I think it's more of a case of we just use contemporary colors because that's cheaper. But my impression, it was always supposed to be uh, take place around the same time. Yeah, you're right. I don't think he probably had to talk to Dean Cundy. Rob Zombie would be a great guest for us to have on here. I'm sure he'd be happy. But he loves these films, and any say what you want about him. You don't like him. You don't like his music. You don't like his films. Whatever. This man likes his horror films, and he loves some of the things that we love. And there are some things in his Halloween that are just a love letter. Dear John, I miss you so much. I mean, it's a literal love letter to John Carpenter and, of course, everybody else involved. But also, like you said, he puts his own spin on it. I don't care about. I'm kind of with John. I don't care what caused Michael.
No, I don't either.
I'm curious. I would like to know more than what John told us, but I think it doesn't work. I.e., the Circle of Thorn or whatever that was called. It,
Well, the Cult of Thorn, which
no,
I
okay.
love Halloween 6. I don't feel like I've never felt, as a fan of the film, I've never felt the Cult of Thorn was a reason, and I'll tell you why. They're because they're trying to sell you a bit that the cult has control. But if you watch the movie, when you watch the theatrical version of it, they're trying to recruit Danny Strode to get a member of the cult. They say they're trying to sacrifice Stephen, but it looks like they're preparing him to be another Michael by putting the thorn symbol on him. And it's like something because the cult to me in 1995 looked small.
Yeah,
It looked like they were on the run from Michael. So it let me know, wait, they aren't in control.
I always thought they wanted to be.
Yeah, they wanted to be, but they weren't.
I think they talked big. Oh yeah, yeah, we were responsible for, and maybe they were involved, but no, and they were maybe trying to get, like you said, get control over Michael,
I
and
have
for their. I tell you one thing, I wish they had done, and even it could be one line, and mention Halloween 3, the guy, the druid that brought the stones over to make the masks. I can't think of the character's name, but he owned the. Yes, mention him as a former member of the Foreign, and then you get a geekgasm like you're not going to believe.
Yeah, I think there are some interesting ties there too, because we know that we know Connell was a businessman, but it's like, okay, what else did he delve into? Because he did delve into sort of occult like matters with the headstone and stuff. What do you think? Liam Neeson is supposed to play Philip Marlowe. What do you think?
It depends on how they do it.
Yeah,
Liam Neeson is a good enough actor. He could, yeah, he could do the warrioriness. He could do the yes. A lot of his more recent films have been real shoot 'em ups and whatnot, so that kind of worries me because again, at least if they do that, they're doing their own spin.
right.
anytime you make a sequel, it's going to be compared to the previous versions for good or for ill. So if you want to make a sequel to The Big Sleep, more power to you, but you're going to be compared to this, and this is one of the greatest films of all time. So, not that Liam Neeson is a bad choice, but I don't know. I just he's a name, he's a good actor, but I don't know if he's necessarily, at least looking at the recent films he's made, if he's necessarily the best choice for this.
It's crazy to think how many actors I think could play a Philip Marlowe, and I'll tell you one because I do think he could play sort of a neo noir detective. Would be Hugh Jackman. I think he could do a good job playing a detective. He actually played like a detective in a sense in a recent movie. I forget what it was called. I watched it too, but there's to me another. There was an actor who I forget his name. He was in. He was related to George Clooney. He was George Clooney's cousin. He passed away here not too long ago. But they were talking about him in a remake for Casablanca years back. And I said, I think he's got the look, but, will they actually do that? And I'm like, I don't know. And they never did.
Thankfully, I'm with you. Casablanca should never be remade. Again, I guess that kind of goes against what I literally just said. I'm sure it eventually will be. It's not going to have the impact because that movie came out basically when it was set. And, hopefully we never have another world war. So, we don't have to go with it. Yeah. Movies are going to be remade. Sometimes you get lucky. I've mentioned before, my favorite horror film of all time is Dawn of the Dead, 1978. And when they announced the remake, I was like, oh, God. This sounds like faint praise, but the remake wasn't bad.
Yeah.
If you can accept it as something different. Now, personally, I wish they'd change the title to, like, I don't know, call it Zombies in the Mall. That way everybody knows, okay, you're remaking Dawn of the Dead, but you're not remaking Dawn of the Dead. Because, and I read this, I can't remember, online or somewhere, and so it's not an original thought, but I've adopted it. It's like you take this title, something original, and you want to remake it, and so you're trying to bring all those fans in, and then you turn around and tell them, well, just throw away all your expectations. Well, then make your own film. Don't take something else. It's like, I don't know where you stand on it. It's like those shitty Zack Snyder Superman films. It's like, dude, that's not Superman.
Yeah. I agree with you because me and my buddy Daniel Culver Killenberg is a YouTuber as well. Shout out to him. I'll leave a link to his channel if anybody wants to go check it out. Great channel. But he and I have talked about this where they put, like, for example, the new Halloween movies. They just put Halloween in the title, like Halloween. They just called they called Halloween 2018 Halloween, like the first one. It's like you're gonna make people think you're remaking the first one. It's like pick a different title. When I'm writing, let's say I'm writing a fan fiction story, and I know it's gonna be Michael Myers. I do my damnedest not to put Halloween in the title. So when I did a reboot, I'm like, you know what? It's fall. What's on the ground? Leaves. Blood on the leaves.
Ooh, it's not bad.
Right. Like, think, like when I wanted to do a ghost story involving Haddonfield, Ghost of Haddonfield. Do something from a title standpoint that lets people know, hey, this is not that. Yes, it's part of the franchise or it has something to do with that franchise, but it's not a remake. It's not. Again, you could do a thousand different titles for anything, but for me to just slap Halloween on the title of any movie, it's like really, it's like that's been done with the original, right? It just them calling Halloween Kills Halloween Kills. It's like really, it's just like you just put kills beneath the title, but
at least that one though, I'll defend that a little bit. You know where it's coming from. You know what franchise it's automatically in. You know when something's going to happen, and I think everybody's brother knew there was going to be another one. I'm about to sneeze. Called, excuse me, Halloween Ends. So to me, there's Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. There is no Halloween that was in 2018. It's just Halloween 2018 because you got to differentiate. That's the title of it in my book. It's Halloween 2018. So if you have the rights to take over some franchise like these folks do, the Halloween Kills and Ends folks, you want to have the hook. I don't mind the hook in that case so much. If George Romero was following up, with characters from Dawn of the Dead, he's not going to call it Peter and Fran stopping Cleveland because who the hell's Peter and Fran? And for anybody that's interested, I did not pick Cleveland at random. The first time I met George, twice, rest in peace, sir. I asked him, I said, what happened to Peter and Fran? He said, yeah, they ran out of gas about Cleveland. I looked at him, I said, God, a fate worse than death. And he started laughing. That was like at that moment, I honestly could have passed away right there. I was like, I made George Romero laugh. My work here is done.
There you go. It really, I do think that if you're gonna do like a movie that has already existed, like if you're gonna do, like you said, Dawn of the Dead or whatever, you don't have to call it Dawn of the Dead. You can let people know you're doing that movie without titling it that movie. Like, I don't. Night of the Living Dead has been redone now to like death to me, and it's like I do think they do need to do it one more time. Just how about maybe not call it Night of the Living Dead? Call it, When the Corpses Walk. Whatever you want to call it. Something. Be. I would never claim to be the most creative person, but be creative. Do something that you know is going to catch somebody's attention. A title that is going to catch somebody's attention.
Use the original title, Night of the Flesh Eaters.
There you go. I like
anybody that hears that. Anybody that knows anything about Night of the Living Dead recognizes that title right away. And
I like that. I like that a lot. What's your favorite scene with Bacall and Bogart in The Big Sleep?
The scene at the diner, the horse racing scene. Oh, sorry.
You all right?
Camera there. Sorry, everybody. Hopefully not bad vertigo. But yeah, that's probably my favorite scene. It's like, oh, she sits down. He's like, well, what are we doing here? And he says something about, well, maybe you could hold my hand. He said, oh, that can be arranged. And he holds out his hand, and she puts her glove in it, and it's just, you can watch it. They're not talking about horses and racing, but it's just a great scene.
My wife said that. She goes, well, you can tell they're talking about sex.
It's not the whole scene, but I think one of my favorite lines in this is, he said, there's two of them. He says, those are harsh words to be thrown at a man as he's leaving your boudoir. And the take it easy. I don't slap so good this early in the morning.
One of my favorite scenes with them both is when he finally does see her. When he does see her sinning, and you can tell he's sort of looking at her and not just observing her, but observing the room. But he is watching her, and he's like, okay. And it doesn't seem big, but to me, it's like he didn't have to stick around either, but he does. He chooses. It lets you know that Philip Marlowe, the character, gave a shit. And It's really a great scene. Like, he just, tell your boss I don't like people play games. Like, bam, bitch. Great scene. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
You know how normally we're talking about these films and we give like a really bad, broken synopsis about what's going on and things going in. And I was like, God, I hope we don't do that in this film, because half the time I don't know what the hell's going on. Who's looking for who? I'm still not quite sure what Sean Reagan did or didn't do. The chauffeur, what he was doing while he got killed. I think that's the question that Howard Hawks uh, asked Dashiell Hammett, the author, about, and they're like, "Mm."
Patrick was telling me that one too. Our buddy Patrick McRae. He's like, yeah. He asked him. He's like, just like what?
If you've never seen, some chance you've never seen this film, you need to watch it. There are parts of it you're going to be like, what's going on? Don't worry about it. Just watch it. Enjoy it. Watch people, two people specifically, but all these people good at their craft. Sit back, roughly an hour and a half, tell you an interesting story, do interesting things, and just enjoy it.
You know what? You know what the big sleep will teach you? Don't sleep with the wrong person's wife.
Hey, before we end up, Patrick, I don't know if he mentioned it to you.
He did.
I was over at his house last weekend, and we were talking. We've been doing the westerns,
Yes.
and I said something about getting him on, and he made a suggestion. So I'm going to throw it out there to you. Westworld.
Yes, he did suggest that. So
Did he also throw in Future World too, the sequel? Because Future World's probably not going to be able to hold its own film.
I think he may have. I know he said Westworld, but because we were talking about different things, me and him, when because we did a podcast late last night and we got off and we were talking. He said about it. He said about what you just said. And hold on, let me quit recording and we'll talk.
Okay.
Hold on.